Hello, my friend. I'm Paul. Welcome to Night of Tales, a quiet refuge for imagination and dreams. Set aside your worries, as tonight we journey together through worlds of magic, mystery, and wonder. Lie back, relax, and let the tales carry you away. Tonight we venture into the monster-haunted world of The Witcher. The road to Kararas wound through fields of golden grain that stretched to the horizon. Geralt of Rivia rode slowly, his mare Roach plodding along the dusty path under the late summer sun. The air shimmered with heat. Sweat darkened the leather of his armor. He had been traveling for 3 days since leaving the coast, drawn inland by rumors of work. A witcher's life consisted of such journeys. One contract led to another, one village to the next. The roads between them were long and often empty. Kararas was the agricultural heart of Cidaris, a kingdom of farmers and grain merchants. The fields here fed cities along the coast. Without the harvest, people would starve come winter. That made the current problem particularly urgent. 3 workers had died in the fields. All of them had fallen at noon when the sun was highest. Witnesses spoke of a pale woman who appeared in the heat, screaming and draining the life from her victims. The village elder had sent word to Cidaris proper and someone there had known to contact a witcher. Geralt had accepted the contract without hesitation. The description was clear enough. A noon wraith. The village appeared ahead, a cluster of wooden buildings surrounded by endless fields. Geralt could see the workers bent over their labor, cutting grain with curved sickles. They moved slowly in the oppressive heat. He noticed that none of them worked alone. They stayed in groups, casting nervous glances at the sun. Fear had changed the rhythm of the harvest. The elder waited for him in the shade of a large oak at the village center. He was an old man, his face withered by decades of sun and wind. His name was Piotr. He greeted Geralt with obvious relief. "We sent word a week back. I feared no one would come." Geralt dismounted and led Roach to a water trough. The mare drank deeply. 3 dead. "Tell me about them." Piotr's expression darkened. "All young men, strong workers. They were in the western fields when it happened. One moment they were cutting grain, the next they were screaming. By the time others reached them, they were already gone, drained of life. Their skin was gray, their eyes empty." Geralt had seen such deaths before. Noon wraiths killed by drawing out vitality itself, leaving corpses that looked ancient and withered. The process was swift and agonizing. The victims rarely had time to run. When did the attacks begin? 2 weeks back, right at the start of harvest. Piotr hesitated. "There's something else. The attacks all happen in the same part of the field. near the eastern boundary where the land rises slightly. That's where the indentured servant Mila died last year. Geralt's yellow eyes fixed on the elder. Tell me about her. She was young, maybe 20 summers. She worked for Declan Var, the landowner whose estate borders the village. Piotr's voice grew quieter. She died of heat stroke during harvest. Var claimed it was an accident. Paid the fine and that was the end of it. But people talk. They say she was being punished. That Var denied her water and shade because she had displeased him somehow. Geralt felt the familiar weight of such stories. He had encountered too many deaths that were called accidents but were truly murders dressed in respectable clothes. The law protected the wealthy. It ground the poor beneath its heel. And sometimes the dead did not rest quietly. Where is she buried? At the edge of the field where she died. No marker. No rites. Var wouldn't allow her to be buried in the village cemetery. He claimed she was just a servant. Geralt's jaw tightened. A new Wraith's rage often stemmed from injustice. An unmarked grave and denied rights would certainly qualify. He needed to examine the site and speak with those who knew what truly happened. And Var still owns his estate, still works his fields. Piotr met Geralt's gaze. He's a hard man, wealthy, connected to families in Citrus City. No one crosses him. Geralt had met many such men. They wore fine clothes and spoke of honor while their cruelty poisoned everything they touched. If Var had murdered Mila through deliberate negligence, the Noon Wraith would not rest until that injustice was acknowledged. I'll need to speak with the other servants who worked with her. And I'll need to examine the grave site. Can you arrange it? Piotr nodded. The servants gather at the common well each evening. I'll make sure they know to speak with you. As for the grave, I can take you there in the morning if you wish. The sun is still high. Geralt shook his head. Noon Wraiths manifested at midday when the sun was strongest. Approaching the site at this hour would be dangerous without preparation. Tomorrow morning, before the heat becomes too strong, I'll need time to prepare. He would need his potions and oils. He would need to understand exactly what had happened. Only then could he determine how to lay her spirit to rest. Piotr showed him to a small house at the edge of the village where he could stay. The interior was simple but clean. Geralt unpacked his supplies and laid them out carefully. Spectre oil for his silver sword. The ingredients for a tawny elf potion to sharpen his senses. Chalk for drawing signs. He worked methodically, his hands steady despite his fatigue. As evening approached, Geralt made his way to the common well. A group of men and women had gathered there, drawing water after the day's labor. They fell silent when they saw him approach. His appearance always had that effect. The white hair, the yellow eyes, the twin swords on his back. He was obviously not human. One of the women stepped forward. She was middle-aged with strong hands and a direct gaze. "You're the Witcher?" Geralt nodded. "I need to know about Mila. What really happened to her?" The woman glanced at her companions. Some of them looked away. Fear still controlled them even a year after Mila's death. But the woman's expression hardened with something else. Anger perhaps, or long-suppressed grief. "My name is Yenna. I worked alongside her for 3 years. She was a good girl, kind and hardworking. She never caused trouble." Geralt waited. He had learned that silence often encouraged people to speak more than questions did. Yenna continued. "Last summer, Master Var took an interest in her. He would watch her in the fields, make comments. She tried to ignore him. Then one day he cornered her in the barn, offered her better quarters, lighter work if she would warm his bed. The other servants shifted uncomfortably. This was dangerous talk. Speaking ill of a master could bring punishment. But Yenna seemed past caring. She refused him, told him she would not be any man's mistress. Var was furious. The next day he accused her of breaking one of his expensive water jugs. She hadn't. We all knew she hadn't. But he used it as an excuse to punish her. What was the punishment? He made her work through the hottest part of the day with no water and no shade. It was the height of summer. The heat was unbearable. Yenna's voice trembled. We begged him to let her rest. We offered to share our water. He forbade it. He claimed she needed to learn discipline. By midday she was staggering. By early afternoon she collapsed. We carried her to the shade, but it was too late. She died within the hour. Geralt's hands clenched. Such casual cruelty. Such meaningless death. All because a man's pride had been wounded. What did Var do? Called it an accident. Claimed she should have been stronger. Paid the death fine to the magistrate, 50 crowns. Had her buried at the edge of his field like a dead animal. Wouldn't even allow a priest to speak rights over her. We wanted to bring her to the village cemetery, but he refused. He claimed she didn't deserve it after causing him such trouble. Geralt spent the evening gathering more details from the servants. Each account confirmed Yenna's story. Var had deliberately caused Mila's death, then used his wealth and position to avoid real consequences. The injustice of it burned in Geralt's chest. He had seen countless such crimes. The powerful preyed on the weak, and the world called it natural order. As night fell, he returned to his lodging and prepared his equipment. He sharpened his silver sword until the edge could split a hair. He mixed his potions carefully, measuring each ingredient with precision. The tawny owl would enhance his reflexes. The thunderbolt would increase his strength. The swallow would help him heal if the wraith's touch found him. He also prepared spectre oil, a mixture that would coat his blade and make it more effective against incorporeal beings. The oil was made from ingredients he had gathered over months: essence of wraith, various herbs, and alchemical reagents. Applied properly, it would allow his sword to strike a creature made of rage and sorrow. Before dawn, Geralt rose and meditated. He let his mind grow calm and focused. Fighting a noon wraith required patience and precision. They were fast and deadly. Their touch could age a man decades in seconds. They manifested in the heat shimmer, appearing and disappearing like mirages. The key was to contain them, to limit their movement with signs until an opening appeared. As the sun rose, Piotr came to guide him to the grave site. They walked through the fields in silence. Workers were already beginning their labor, but they gave the eastern section a wide berth. No one would go near where Mila had died. The sight was unremarkable. A slight rise in the land surrounded by grain that grew a bit shorter and paler than elsewhere. Geralt could feel the wrongness even before he saw the grave. The air felt heavy, oppressive, as if grief itself had weight. The grave was barely visible, just a depression in the earth with no marker or sign. Weeds grew over it. Geralt knelt and placed his hand on the soil. Beneath the surface, he could sense the anger that burned there. Mila's spirit was trapped, unable to move on because of how she had been treated. Her death had been unjust. Her burial had been without dignity. And no one had been punished for what had been done to her. This is where she appears? At noon? Piotr nodded. Always at noon, when the sun is highest and the heat is strongest. Just like the day she died. Geralt stood and surveyed the area. The field stretched in all directions. There was little cover, nowhere to hide if the wraith attacked. He would need to face her in the open. But first he needed to understand the full truth. And he needed to confront the man responsible. Where is Var's estate? Piotr pointed to the west, where a large house was visible in the distance. Its white walls gleamed in the morning sun. A fine house built on suffering and cruelty. Will you speak with him? Geralt's expression was grim. Yes. He needs to understand what his actions have created. They walked to the estate together. The grounds were well maintained, the gardens lush and green despite the summer heat. Clearly Var did not deny himself water. A servant answered the door and tried to turn them away, but Geralt pushed past. He had no patience for protocol. Var was in his study, a large room filled with ledgers and account books. He looked up in annoyance as Geralt entered. Who are you? What is the meaning of this intrusion? Gerald stopped in front of the desk. His yellow eyes were cold. I'm the Witcher hired to deal with the new Wraith killing your workers. We need to talk about Mila. Var's expression hardened. That girl? She died over a year back. It was an unfortunate accident. Nothing more. It was murder. Gerald's voice was flat. You deliberately withheld water and shade knowing it could kill her. You did it because she rejected you. Var stood abruptly, his face flushed with anger. How dare you? I am a landowner, a man of standing. You're nobody, just a mutant who hunts monsters for coin. You have no right to speak to me this way. Geralt didn't move. The monster I'm hunting exists because of what you did. She died in agony because of your cruelty. Her spirit cannot rest because you denied her justice and dignity. She's killing the innocent to get your attention. Var's anger faltered slightly. He glanced toward the window, toward the fields where the attacks had occurred. That's not my fault. I paid the fine. The law was satisfied. The law protected you. That doesn't make you innocent. Gerald leaned forward slightly. Tell me the truth. Why did you really punish her? For a long moment, Var remained silent. Then his shoulders sagged. Because she humiliated me. She was just a servant and she dared to refuse me. I wanted to teach her a lesson. I didn't mean for her to die. I just wanted her to suffer a bit, to understand her place. But the heat was worse than I expected. By the time I realized how bad it was too late. So you let her die. Then you buried her like an animal and pretended it was an accident. Var's voice dropped. What else could I do? If I admitted the truth, I would have faced serious charges. My reputation would have been destroyed. So I paid the fine and moved forward. It was better for everyone. Better for you. Gerald's contempt was clear in his voice. Not for her. And not for the men who have died because her spirit seeks justice. Var sank back into his chair. He suddenly looked older, smaller. What do you want from me? The truth, publicly spoken, and a proper burial for her with all the rights she was denied. Var shook his head. I can't do that. It would ruin me. Then more people will die. Geralt turned toward the door. The Wraith will keep killing until justice is done. You can either face the truth at this moment or face it later when even more blood is on your hands. He left Var sitting in his study and returned to the village. Piotr was waiting anxiously. Will he confess? Not yet, but he will. Geralt's tone was certain. This afternoon I'll face the Wraith, and Var will be there to see what his actions have created. The morning passed slowly. Geralt prepared his final arrangements. He drank his potions one by one, feeling them burn through his system. His heart rate increased. His pupils dilated. His senses sharpened to supernatural levels. He could hear conversations from houses away. He could smell the fear on the workers in the fields. The mutations that made him a witcher transformed him into something more than human. As noon approached, Geralt made his way to the grave site. Piotr had gathered witnesses as requested, the village elder, several servants who had known Mila, and a traveling magistrate who happened to be in the area. Geralt had also insisted that Var attend. The landowner came reluctantly, his face pale. The sun climbed higher. The heat became oppressive. The air shimmered and danced. Geralt stood near the grave with his silver sword drawn and coated in spectre oil. He had drawn signs on the ground with chalk, intricate patterns that would help channel his power. The signs were simple magic that witchers used: art to create force, igni to summon fire, Quinn to form a shield, Irden to lay traps, Xc to control minds. Today he would need Irden most of all. As the sun reached its zenith, the temperature seemed to spike. The air grew thick and hard to breathe. Then she appeared. The noon wraith manifested in the heat shimmer, a pale figure that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. Her form was translucent, but her features were clear enough. A young woman with long dark hair and hollow eyes. Her mouth opened in a silent scream. The temperature dropped suddenly. Frost formed on the grain stalks. The wraith's presence was so strong that reality itself seemed to bend around her. Geralt's voice was steady. I know what happened to you. I know what he did. The wraith's head turned toward Various. Her scream became audible, a sound of pure anguish and rage. Var stumbled backward, his face white with terror. Geralt raised his left hand and made a quick gesture. The Irden sign flared to life on the ground, a circle of purple light that created a trap. The wraith moved toward Var, but the sign slowed her, making her movements sluggish. She struggled against the invisible barrier. Tell them what you did. Tell them the truth. Var was shaking. He looked at the wraith, at the witnesses, at Geralt. His mouth worked, but no sound came out. The wraith screamed again and surged forward. She broke through the first layer of the Irden trap. Her fingers reached toward Var, blackened and clawed. Geralt reinforced the sign with another gesture, but he could feel the strain. The wraith's power was immense. Speak. Var broke. The words tumbled out in a rush. I killed her. I denied her water because she refused me. I watched her suffer and did nothing. When she died, I covered it up. I paid the fine and buried her without rites because I didn't want anyone to know what I'd done." He was weeping at this point, his voice raw. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." The Wraith paused. Her form flickered. The magistrate stepped forward. His voice was formal and cold. "Declan Var, by your own confession, you are guilty of murder through deliberate negligence. Your lands and title are forfeit. You will face trial in Citrus City. Guards, take him." The guards moved forward and seized Various. He didn't resist. All the fight had gone out of him. He looked at the Wraith one final time, then let himself be led away. But the Wraith had not dissipated. She still strained against the earthen trap, her rage only partially satisfied. Gerald understood. Confession alone was not enough. True justice required more than words. Piotr stepped forward with the village priest, an old man who carried a worn holy book. The priest approached the grave carefully, his hands trembling. He had seen the Wraith's power and knew how close to death he stood. But he was brave enough to do what needed to be done. Gerald spoke to the Wraith again. "You were denied the rights and dignity you deserved. That wrong will be corrected. You will be moved to the village cemetery. A proper stone will mark your grave. Your name will be remembered." The priest began to speak the funeral rites in a wavering voice. He blessed the ground and spoke of peace for the departed. He asked forgiveness for the injustice that had been done. The other servants joined in, murmuring prayers and apologies. Yenna knelt by the grave with tears streaming down her face. "We should have fought harder for you. We should have stood up to him. Forgive us." The Wraith's form began to change. The rage in her hollow eyes dimmed. She looked at the gathered people, at the priest performing the rites she had been denied, at Geralt standing between her and the living. For a moment her face showed something other than anger. Sorrow, perhaps. Or exhaustion. Geralt lowered his sword slightly. "You can rest at this moment. Justice has been done. He has confessed. He will face punishment. You will be buried with honor." The Noon Wraith opened her mouth as if to speak, but no words came. Instead, her form began to fade. The frost on the grain stalks melted. The oppressive weight lifted from the air. Geralt raised his left hand one final time and channeled a controlled burst of Igni through the center of the earthen circle. The flame was not meant to harm, but to purify, to burn away the last threads of rage that bound the spirit to the world. The fire flashed bright and hot, then vanished. The Wraith was gone. Only sunlight and grain remained. The witnesses stood in silence for several moments. Then Piotr let out a long breath. "Is it over?" Geralt nodded. "She's at peace. Make sure she's moved to the cemetery today. give her a proper marker with her name, and make sure people remember what happened here. The priest promised to oversee the burial personally. The servants began to gather tools to exhume the grave and transport Mila's remains. Yenna approached Geralt. "Thank you. Not just for stopping the attacks, but for making sure the truth came out. Not many would have bothered." Geralt sheathed his sword. "Everyone deserves justice. Even the dead. Especially the dead." He returned to the village as the afternoon heat began to settle over the fields. The workers had already returned to their labor since the danger had passed. The rhythm of the harvest would continue. Life would go on as it always did. But something had changed. Var would face trial. Mila would have her proper burial. The servants would remember that even the powerless could find justice if someone was willing to stand for them. That evening, Piotr presented Geralt with his payment. A pouch of crowns, more than the usual rate for dealing with a wraith. The village had pooled their resources to ensure the Witcher was well compensated. Geralt accepted it without comment. He would need the coin for supplies and lodging as he continued his travels. The life of a Witcher was expensive, and there was always another contract waiting somewhere. Before he left, he visited the cemetery where Mila's reburial was taking place. A small stone had been carved with her name and a simple inscription, "Here lies Mila, taken too soon, at rest at last." It was modest, but it was more than she had before. The priest completed the rites as the sun set, casting long shadows across the graves. Geralt watched from a distance. He felt the familiar weight of melancholy that followed such cases. The Wraith had been laid to rest, but Mila was still dead. Justice had been served, but it had come too late to save her. The world was full of such tragedies. As darkness fell, Geralt mounted Roach and turned toward the road. There were other villages, other contracts, other wrongs that needed righting. The path of a Witcher was long and often lonely, but someone had to walk it. Someone had to stand between the innocent and the darkness. He rode through the night with the stars overhead and the sound of Roach's hooves on the packed earth. The fields of Kararas fell behind him. Ahead lay more roads, more towns, more monsters, both supernatural and human. He would face them as he always had, with his swords, his signs, and his stubborn refusal to let injustice go unanswered. The moon rose higher, painting the landscape in silver. Geralt's thoughts turned to the next destination. He had heard rumors of trouble in a town to the north. Something about missing children and strange lights in the forest. It would take 3 days to reach it. 3 days of riding through the summer heat, of sleeping under the stars, of being alone with his thoughts. But that was the life he had chosen, or perhaps the life that had chosen him. Either way, it was the only life he knew. He urged Roach to a steady trot. The night was cool and the road was clear. Behind him in a small cemetery in Kararas, a spirit rested at last. Ahead of him, others waited for the help only a witcher could provide. The work was never finished, but Geralt would continue as long as he was able. It was what he did. It was what he was. The road stretched on into darkness, and Geralt followed it without hesitation. 3 days later, Geralt arrived at the town of Rain in northern Cidaris. It was larger than the farming village he had left behind, with proper walls and a market square. But prosperity did not protect against monsters. He had learned that lesson long back. The innkeeper, a heavy woman with sharp eyes, gave him a room and told him what he needed to know. Children had been vanishing from the outskirts of town. For in the past month, they disappeared at night, leaving no trace. Some people blamed wolves. Others whispered about darker things. Geralt listened carefully as he ate his meal. The pattern was familiar. Children taken at night with no witnesses. That ruled out most natural predators. Wolves were bold, but they left signs, tracks, blood, torn clothing. Magical creatures were more subtle. They could mask their presence and move through shadows without being seen. What about the lights? The innkeeper frowned. Strange lights in the forest. Blue and flickering. Some folks say they are spirits. Others say they are nothing, just swamp gas or fireflies. But the lights appeared the same time the children started disappearing. Geralt finished his meal and paid for 3 nights' lodging in advance. He would need time to investigate properly. Rushing into unknown danger was a good way to die. He spent the afternoon gathering information. The missing children were all between 7 and 12 years old. All had disappeared from homes near the forest edge. None had been found despite extensive searches. The pattern suggested something intelligent, something that hunted with purpose. As evening approached, Geralt prepared his equipment once more. Different monsters required different preparations. Without knowing exactly what he faced, he had to be ready for anything. He took his full complement of potions and sharpened both his swords. Steel for humans and natural creatures, silver for monsters and magical beings. Night fell and Geralt made his way to the forest edge. He moved quietly, his enhanced senses alert for any sign of danger. The forest was old, the trees thick and gnarled. Underbrush grew dense between the trunks. It was the kind of place where things could hide. He waited in the shadow of a large oak, watching and listening. Hours passed. The moon rose and cast pale light through the canopy. Geralt remained motionless, his patience born of decades of hunting. Then he saw it, a flicker of blue light deep in the trees. It moved slowly, dancing between the trunks like a will-o-wisp. Geralt felt his medallion vibrate against his chest, a sure sign of magic. He followed the light carefully, keeping his distance. It led him deeper into the forest, away from the town and any chance of help. That was how such creatures worked. They lured victims away from safety into places where no one would hear them scream. The light stopped in a clearing. Geralt crouched behind a fallen log and observed. In the center of the clearing was a ring of mushrooms, pale and luminescent. Fairy rings were places of power where the boundary between worlds grew thin. And standing in the center of the ring was the source of the light. It was a woman or something that looked like a woman. Her skin was pale blue and seemed to glow from within. Her hair was long and white, floating around her head as if she was underwater. Her eyes were completely black, without iris or pupil. She was beautiful in an alien, unsettling way. A wraith? No. Geralt studied her more carefully. She had solidity that wraiths lacked. She wore a dress of what looked like spider silk and flower petals. Around her feet, 4 children slept in a circle. They appeared unharmed but deeply unconscious. Geralt recognized what he was facing. A vila. A forest spirit of ancient power. They were rare and dangerous, capable of enchanting mortals with their beauty and their song. They stole children for reasons mortals could barely comprehend, sometimes to raise them as their own, sometimes to drain their life force, sometimes simply because they were lonely. Getting the children back would be difficult. Vilas were not mindless monsters. They were intelligent and cunning. They could be bargained with, but they were treacherous negotiators. And they were powerful enough that fighting one was extremely dangerous. Geralt weighed his options. He could try to negotiate for the children's release. He could attempt a surprise attack. Or he could observe longer and learn more about what the vila wanted. Before he could decide, the vila's head turned toward his hiding spot. She smiled, revealing teeth that were slightly too pointed. "I know you are there. Come out. No point in hiding at this moment." Geralt stood and walked into the clearing, his hand near his sword but not drawing it. The vila watched him with those unsettling black eyes. Her smile never wavered. "A witcher in my forest. How interesting. You have come for the children, I suppose?" Geralt nodded. "Return them unharmed and I will leave peacefully." The vila laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Peacefully? How generous of you. But these children are mine at this point. I collected them fairly. They wandered into my territory. By the old laws, they belong to me. There are no old laws anymore. This is human land at this point." The vila's expression turned cold. "Human land? Humans are newcomers, children playing at civilization. My kind were here before the first humans set foot in these forests. We will be here long after humans are dust. This land is ours by right of age and power. Geralt kept his voice level. The children's families want them back. They are suffering. Surely you understand that. The Vila tilted her head, considering. Do I? I have no family. I have no children of my own. I am alone, as all Vilas are alone. These humans keep each other company. They live and love and die together. We have nothing but eternal solitude. Is it so wrong that I wish for companionship? What will you do with them? She shrugged, a too graceful movement. Raise them, perhaps. Keep them with me. They will not age here in the ring. They will stay young and beautiful forever. Is that not a gift? It is a cage. They belong with their own kind, and you belong with yours. Yet here you are, walking among humans despite being neither human nor monster. We are both outcasts. We should understand each other. Geralt felt the truth in her words. Witchers were mutants created through dark rituals and chemical alterations. They were stronger and faster than humans with enhanced senses and long lifespans. But they were sterile and emotionally muted. They existed between worlds, accepted by neither humans nor monsters. Still, he could not let the children remain. Their families grieve for them. They deserved a chance to live their own lives. Release them. Please. There does not need to be violence between us. The Vila studied Geralt for a long moment. Her black eyes seemed to look through him, measuring something he could not name. Then she sighed. Very well. I will make you an offer. A game. If you win, I release the children unharmed and leave this forest. If I win, you join them here in the ring. You will keep me company for eternity. Geralt considered. Games with magical beings were always dangerous. They had their own rules and interpretations. But fighting her directly would be worse. In the fairy ring, her power would be immense. And even if he won, the children might be harmed in the battle. What kind of game? A riddle contest. 3 riddles each. If you answer mine correctly and I cannot answer yours, you win. The Vila's smile returned. Simple enough. Do you accept? Geralt had always been good with riddles. Witchers were trained to think analytically, to solve problems through logic and observation. But he was not arrogant enough to underestimate his opponent. Still, he had little choice. Agreed. But if you try to cheat or harm the children during the game, all bargains are void. The Vila placed her hand over her heart in a mockery of sincerity. I swear by the old powers. No tricks, no deception. Just riddles and wits. She gestured in the air and the clearing seemed to thicken. the light from the mushroom ring grew brighter. The children remained asleep, oblivious to their fate being decided. "I will go first." Her voice took on a rhythmic quality. "I am taken from a mine and shut up in a wooden case from which I am never released, and yet I am used by almost every person. What am I?" Gerald thought carefully. Taken from a mine suggested minerals or metals. Shut in a wooden case and never released, yet used by everyone. The answer came to him. Pencil lead, graphite encased in wood, used for writing. The Vila's smile faltered slightly. "Correct. Your turn." Gerald had prepared riddles during his years of travel. He chose one he had learned from a scholar in Oxenford. "I have cities but no houses. I have mountains but no trees. I have water but no fish. What am I?" The Vila pondered. Her expression grew thoughtful. "Cities without houses, mountains without trees, water without fish. These are representations, not the things themselves." "A map." "Yes." Gerald kept his face neutral, but inwardly he noted that she was quick. This would not be easy. The Vila's second riddle came without pause. "The more you take, the more you leave behind." Where are they? Another classic riddle. Gerald had heard variations of it before. Footsteps. The more steps you take, the more footprints you leave. Correct again. The Vila's voice held a note of respect at this point. "You are clever. But I have one more. And so do you." Gerald took his time with the next riddle. He needed something difficult, something that required true thought rather than just pattern recognition. "I speak without a mouth and hear without ears. I have no body, but I come alive with wind. What am I?" The Vila frowned. "Speaking without a mouth, hearing without ears, no body but alive with wind." She walked around the edge of the ring, her luminous form flickering. Minutes passed. Gerald waited patiently. Finally, the Vila turned to face him. An echo. Sound reflecting off surfaces, carried by air, seeming alive though it has no physical form. Gerald nodded slowly. She had solved it. They were tied at 2 riddles each. Everything depended on her final question and whether he could answer it. The Vila's black eyes glittered. "For my last riddle, I will ask you something only one who truly understands loneliness can answer. What is always coming but never arrives?" Gerald felt the weight of the question. It was not just a riddle. It was a test of understanding, of shared experience. He thought of his long life, of the endless road, of always moving toward the next contract but never finding rest. Tomorrow. It is always coming, always one day away. No matter how long we wait, tomorrow never arrives, because when it does, it becomes today. The villa was silent. Her expression was unreadable. Then slowly she smiled. A real smile this time, not mocking or cruel. Yes, you understand. Tomorrow never comes. We are forever in today, forever in the present moment of our loneliness. She walked to the center of the ring and knelt beside the sleeping children. Her hand brushed gently across their foreheads. You have won fairly. I released them as promised. The children stirred and began to wake. They looked around in confusion, not understanding where they were or how they had arrived. The villa stood and faced Giro one final time. I will leave this forest as agreed. Perhaps I will find another place, another time. Perhaps I will accept my solitude as you have accepted yours. She began to fade, her luminous form growing transparent. But before she vanished completely, she spoke one last time. You are a good man. Despite what you are, despite what was done to you, you fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. That is rare. Then she was gone, leaving only the faint scent of flowers and the echo of wind chimes. The children were fully awake at this point, crying and calling for their parents. Gerald gathered them carefully and led them out of the forest. The walk back to town took an hour. The children clung to him, still frightened but trusting. When they reached the edge of the forest, families were waiting. Someone had seen them emerge from the trees and raised the alarm. Parents rushed forward, weeping and grabbing their children. The joy and relief were overwhelming. Gerald stood back and watched the reunions. This was the part he never grew tired of, seeing families made whole again, seeing children return to safety. It made the danger and the loneliness worthwhile. The town alderman approached with a purse of coins. The payment was generous. Word would spread of the Witcher who had saved the children of Rain without violence, who had outwitted Avila through cleverness rather than force. Such stories were rare and would be remembered. Gerald accepted the payment and returned to the inn. He was tired. The potions had worn off, leaving him drained. He needed sleep, and then he would need to move forward. There was always another town, another contract. As he lay in his bed that night, he thought about the Vila's words. She had seen through him, had recognized the loneliness that defined his existence. Witchers were made to be alone. They were too different from humans to ever truly belong. But they served a purpose. They stood between the darkness and the innocent. And sometimes that was enough. Geralt closed his eyes and let sleep take him. His dreams were troubled, as they often were. But when he woke the next morning, he rose and prepared for the road. There was work to be done. There were monsters to hunt and people to protect. The life of a Witcher was hard and often thankless. But it was his life. and he would walk that path for as long as he was able. He saddled Roach and rode out of rain as the sun climbed into the sky. The road stretched ahead, winding through forests and fields toward distant horizons. Somewhere out there someone needed help. Somewhere out there a monster waited. And Geralt would find them both. The wind carried the scent of approaching rain. Summer was ending. Autumn would come soon with its own challenges and dangers. But that was a problem for another day. For the present moment, there was only the road and the steady rhythm of Roach's hooves. Geralt rode forward, a solitary figure against the vast landscape. The Witcher of Rivia, forever searching, forever alone, forever necessary. The world needed monsters, and it needed those who would hunt them,